Hello, hi, I'm Cryptic Hybrid, and like you, I've been recently made aware that a new Battlefield game is coming out later this year. It was announced, it's Battlefield 2042, and I checked its website to see what it's all about, and one of the things that perplexed me was the story, or the world according to Battlefield 2042, so I wanted to make a small video to kind of comment on it and give a little perspective on it. Alright, so this is on the Battlefield site. Welcome to 2042. As the world stands on the brink of war, a new kind of stateless soldier emerges from the greatest crisis in human history. How do we get here? I mean, that's, pretty big, big statements here, very bold statements. The greatest crisis in human history. Okay, let's see what that crisis is, and how we got there. A decade of chaos, 2031, so 10 years from now. 10 years is all it took to bring the world to the brink. By the way, this is the second time we get the word brink, and we're gonna get it later on. That's bad writing. Brink is not the type of word that you have so often because it's not used as often, so you wouldn't just put it in two sentences or two paragraphs that are so close to one another. But that's another thing. So 10 years all it took to bring the world to the brink. Rising sea levels, collapsing economies, broken alliances, and the headlines keep rolling in. That sounds, all pretty bad. So let's continue. We have a timeline, October 9th, 2033. So, these 10 years, something happened, things are very bad, but now we're gonna go 12 years in the future, and we go to 2033, October 9th, Hurricane Zeta, the world's first Category 6 storm. And that's it, that's all we get. So apparently we're supposed to be, I don't know, like scared maybe, or shocked that there was the first Category 6 storm ever. Again, Hurricane Zeta, that doesn't mean anything. If you just tell me, you know what, there's been a Category 6 storm, the first one in existence, but like, wow, okay, where was it? What happened? So there's no details as to the aftermath, the damage done. Could have been, it could be somewhere where, maybe, sure, it could be some damages, but not, I don't know, people displaced, like thousands, hundreds of thousands of people dead, who knows, billions of dollars in worth of damage, in damage, we don't know. We just know that Hurricane Zeta happened, and it was the world's first Category 6 storm. So, the first thing here doesn't tell us technically anything about the state of the world because of this hurricane. It just happened. So something happened. Something that's, a huge weather event happened, and that's it. We don't know what that the aftermath is following that event, that hurricane. All right, so we skip over Hurricane Zeta because it was just the first Category 6 storm, but we're not going to talk much about it. Let's go next year to 2034. January 11th, global food fuel shortages spark second Great Depression. Okay, this is interesting. So this seems like it was written by someone who doesn't really know anything about the first depression either. Now, to be fair, I don't know that much either, but I do know enough to know that food and fuel shortages are not the things that started the first depression. Credit expansion, fake money that is not based on anything, the printer, as people know it right now, the Federal Reserve, all sorts of money out of nowhere that was flooding into the world's economies, and especially the United States one, which eventually led to a lot of things being developing, a lot of investment being done, and there was no corresponding demand for all those things that were being made. So, people lost their jobs, awful stuff from the little that I know, but the global food and fuel shortages, that's not it. I mean, there were, shortages of, goods, of commodities throughout mankind's history, and just shortages of certain goods don't mean depression, right? I mean, recession? No, not even recession, depending. The thing is that, this sentence is okay, this just tells me that whoever wrote this doesn't know about the Great Depression, almost anything. It's just, everyone could suspect, food and fuel shortages, bad, right? It's all bad, right? We have chip shortages, it's bad. We have graphics card shortages, it's bad. Well, this is worse because it's food, right? Of course, right? Like toilet paper shortages in technically happened last year. So yeah, bad things, but Great Depression level of bad things, not so much. So this doesn't really mean anything. And I mean, a second Great Depression would probably mean in logical terms, it would mean, I don't know, 200 million plus people out of job, like that in a month. So that would be a Great Depression maybe. And like a rising inflation, rising prices because of inflation, because the value of money collapses, all those things. So those would be signs of a depression, but not necessarily a depression, but a recession. But that could lead to depression. But for fuel and food shortages alone don't make a Great Depression from what I understand. So that was a little bit weird. So let's go to August, because second Great Depression, that's fine. We're just gonna go 6 months in, well, 8 months in, 9 months in, 8 months in, and we're everything's totally different. Everything we have to care about other things. Actually, no, a year and 8 months, because this is 2035, August 8th. European Union officially disbands following Germany's collapse. This is I don't know. It's a pretty soulless statement, or soulless sentence, I guess. Doesn't really mean anything. European Union disbands. Okay, Germany's collapse. Doesn't say why it collapsed. Maybe because of the Great Depression, but that would be, again, a year and 8 months after, 7 months after. So we don't know what's going on, what happened, why were the reasons why it disbanded. I mean, technically, if Germany would collapse, the European Union would still exist, technically, right? Because it's for the most part, a political and economical, entity, alliance, right? So, and it converges, all the elements of the countries that make it up. But okay, one country collapse and the European Union disbands. All right, let's say we believe that, although it's again a very soulless sentence. The rise of the no-pats, left behind, this is a good one, left behind, the displaced band together into ragtag fleets in search of safe harbor. They are families, farmers, doctors, engineers, and soldiers, the once privileged and the impoverished with backgrounds that are worlds apart, forced together, determined to survive. The media calls them the non-patrioted. They call themselves no-pats. Okay, so in, I guess, 2035 maybe, we have the rise of this new type of human with an identity that's non-patrioted. So they're not part of a country. They don't have a citizenship, right? Because that would be the thing. And they've been displaced, and apparently they're all very good people, very important, like families. Okay, this is to pull on your heartstrings. Families, farmers, good farmers or bad farmers, doctors, same thing, engineers, soldiers, the once privileged and the impoverished with backgrounds that are worlds apart. So what this tells us is that really, like, really successful people, privileged people, right, from maybe first world countries, and people from third world countries all came together because they were all displaced. By whom? By what? We don't really know. Let's read on and see. The new normal, 2037. Humanity adapts to the new normal. Revolutions in energy, desert irrigation, hydraulic levees, and seawalls save coastal cities, reclaim farmland, and rebuild supply chains. Hope of finding stability leads to some nations reopening their borders. Okay, so here we find that some nations, at least, close their borders. We don't know why exactly, but they did previously, before 2037. They closed their borders, and now they're beginning to reopen. And for the most part, this whole paragraph sounds good. Revolution. So there's advancements in terms of technology, which is great, I guess, depending on how they're used. But it says the coastal cities were saved, farmland was reclaimed, the supply chains were being rebuilt. So all those are positive things. So hope of finding stability leads to some nations reopening their borders. Okay, well, hope alone doesn't, stabilize anything, but all right. But that's, this paragraph specifically, nothing wrong with it for the most part. It's just, great. It's hopeful. It's a good thing, right? We have, a little bit of a light, ray of light coming from all this craziness. However, with no way to repatriate 1.2 billion people, nomads become a permanent fixture in all economic, military, and social policy making. Now, this is very interesting. So now here we find out that the non-patriated nomads are 1.2 billion. All right, let's say the world is like 9 billion people at that point, right? In 2037. 1.2 billion people is a lot. So what happened to them? How do 1.2 billion people become stateless and just go on boats and just go and find safe harbor? That's a lot of people. And the question is, how did they get to that? Did countries collapse, and because of that, people became without a state? But it's a lot of people. 1.2 billion is an absurd amount of people. But then another absurd thing is that they become a permanent fixture in all economic, military, and social policy making. All right, fair enough. Let's say we have a country, take any country in the world, and the new normal of 2037. Now, the previous paragraph says that hope of finding stability leads to some nations reopening their borders. Okay, some, so not all. Let's say we take a country that didn't open its borders in 2037. Now, a country that didn't open its borders, and there are 1.2 billion people in boats in seas around the world. How would a country that didn't open its borders give a crap about the 1.2 billion people? I mean, it may need to protect itself against it, but they can't be a permanent fixture in economic, military, and social policy making. If someone is not a citizen and is not part of that country and is not inside that country, they will not be part of the social policy making scheme, right? Because they don't matter, technically, right? To that specific state. If a state, in theory, the state would care about the people that are inside its borders. It doesn't. Like, no state actually cares at this point. Never did, but that's neither here nor there. But so we are supposed to believe that because 1.2 billion exist in boats and they just go around, the world seas, in specific countries, their economic and political decisions made based on those people's existence. But if they're not in that country, again, why would you make policy based on some nomadic people that are outside of your country? Maybe military, sure, because you need protection, but economic and social policy, interesting. I would like to know more details on that. Many nomads are still distrustful of the governments that exile them and refuse calls to assimilate. Okay, so now we find out that the nomads became nomads because governments exiled them. So whoever wrote this story for Battlefield 2042 assumes that in a world of, let's say, 9 billion people, 1.2 billion around that number, 1.2 billion people were exiled by their home countries. Exiled, right? Because it says exile them. So it wasn't that there was a collapse of a country and there was no country anymore and those people had to, go somewhere and do something, right? And they became stateless because the state didn't exist, right? They weren't citizens of a country because the country didn't exist anymore, which isn't something that actually happens that often, right? But, extreme measures, sure, it could happen. But in this case, we find out they were exiled. Which country exiles that many people? I mean, just think about it. I mean, the countries right now throughout the world that are incapable of expulging out of their communities, out of their lands, people who do very, very awful things. You take freaking the UK, Sweden, they can't deport like rapists and killers that don't have British or Swedish citizenship, for example. So it would. Thinking that there would be countries around the world that would be capable or even thinking and willing to do something like, exiling that many people sounds absurd. It will be impossible. So I have no idea who wrote this, but apparently they think that, governments around the world who cannot don't want to do anything about very, very awful people would exile families, farmers, doctors, and engineers. So good people that maybe, let's assume they're good people, right? And they're good at their jobs. Yeah, he was a cop and good at his job. No, so these are all, you know, people who are maybe productive. They do something for society. And then one day, that country decided, you know what? I don't need so many engineers. Let's exile them. I don't need these many doctors. Let's exile some of them. I don't need farmers. Let's exile them. Well, that's absurd, right? That wouldn't really happen. That's an absurd scenario. So, good luck with that. I have no idea. Maybe I don't know. Maybe an intern wrote this, because I don't think anyone who's using history, reality, reason, logic would write something like this, because that doesn't make any sense. Alright, no-path leaders emerge, inspiring a new identity unbound to former nationality, drawing a line in the sand between the old world and the new normal. Hashtag We Are No Path becomes a rallying cry. Okay, so this is a play, I guess, I assume. It's a play on the current trend of people thinking that they're not citizens of a country, but they're citizens of the world. And that's a good thing for entities and people who want global governance, right? If your allegiance is to the world, which is a bit vague, but sure, your allegiance to the planet, then you're more likely to accept institutions that have global influence. Whereas if you're more someone who's I'm a citizen of this country or this one, you'd be more protective of your own country, of the government of your country. You go to war maybe for them, and so on and so forth. Whereas the new normal, with people unbound by former nationality, it means that they're just citizens of the world. They care about the world. Well, okay, the world doesn't necessarily care back because it doesn't have to. So this is just I think a play on that, where we're supposed to, like everyone playing here, or Battlefield, is supposed to have this idea inculcated into them that the old world had people with nationalities, countries, borders. The new normal, which is going to be, the humanity rising out of this, period of great despair. The new normal would be people without nations, stateless. We're just together, we're kumbaya and all that crap. So yeah, that's how I see this, but maybe I'm wrong. Amidst the world rebuilding, sparks of friction erupt between the US and Russia as the last two superpowers both vie for control of this fast-changing world. Now, another interesting thing. Amidst the world rebuilding, sparks of friction erupt. Okay, so this is 2037. Now, apparently, a lot of awful things have happened in the last, well, since 2021 to 2037, last 16 years, right? But there were no sparks of friction in between those times. So right now, like two paragraphs above, it says humanity adapts to the new normal, right? Hope of finding stability leads some nations to opening rewards. So we are in 2037. We are at a time where humanity is going up. Like reality is on an upswing in terms of human comfort and survival. Well, maybe survival more than comfort. So we're in better times in 2037 than we were 2 years before, 3 years before, 5 years before. But in those times when there was Great Depression and there was like all sorts of craziness and the EU disbanded, we didn't have sparks of friction between the US and Russia, but now we have. Well, okay, how many wars start when people are super relaxed and have everything they need, or at least when it's a hopeful period of time, right? It's more likely that you would be violent and you'd start a conflict when you're pressured, when you think you're going to be attacked, when you don't have resources, when you can't feed your people, when a country puts on a blockade that's supported by other powerful countries and so on and so forth. Just look at World War I and what happened with Germany. How many people died because of starvation in Germany because of the British blockade, supported by the United States, which the United States were not even involved at that point in time officially. But they sent U.S. people on British boats so they could get killed by German ships and U-boats. well, ships, I guess at that point. I don't know how many U-boats there were. Probably no U-boats in World War One. But yeah, the point is that there's lots of crap that happened, but in a time when there were lots of desperate people, right? Desperate people all over the world, resources, people dying. That's what one of the big things that sparks war. Well, we're on the upswing now. This is better. We're doing better now. And now is the time when, Russia and the United States want to fight? That's an odd thing. That's a very odd thing. And it's also an odd thing to say that as the last two superpowers. Okay. So in 2037, what else is going on? Where's China? Where's China? Because China is 16 years in the past. If you go by this timeline, China is pretty up there in terms of superpower. So what happened since 2021 and 2037? Did China disappear? Did India disappear? Did Brazil disappear? Did Africa disappear? Like every nation in Africa disappear? What happened? We don't know. Canada? Well, no one cares about Canada, but that's another thing. But you know what I mean? It's so weird that we got the US and Russia, and you see there's no mention of China or pretty much any other country. The only country that was mentioned was Germany, that disbanded. Now, of course, my theory, and it's not like a genius thing. I'm thinking that EA doesn't want to anger the totalitarian government of China. So, well, totalitarian government, that's kind of like isn't that an oxymoron? Anyway, they don't want to anger them, so they don't even put China in this game. There's no mention of China. China doesn't exist. Like, if it doesn't exist, then we can't offend them somehow. And I said offend them, I say the government, because the people are a totally different thing, right? Like, the people, the country, and the state, there are three different entities. And the state is the one that's, the most violent, clearly the most violent and the most oppressive and the most, absurd and anti-freedom and whatever. But no mention of China. No mention of any other country. It's very interesting. It's just the US and Russia, and China just disappeared. It was a superpower in 2021, but in 2037, it was like it never happened. All right, now we got the blackout of 2040. So we're on the upswing, but there's tension between US and China, US and Russia, and now 3 years later, 2040, a sudden space debris storm creates a Kessler effect, causing 70% plus of all orbiting satellites to malfunction and crash to Earth. The cause is unknown. Okay, so I read just a little bit on the Kessler effect. Apparently, the idea is that if there's too much debris, there will be a lot of collisions between the debris, and there will be like exponential growth in the collisions in lower Earth orbit and around in Earth's orbit. So okay, let's say that would happen. Okay, a lot. 70+% of all orbiting satellites malfunction. If Elon Musk still exists in 2040, then he will watch his Starlink system just crumble, because those small little internet carrying satellites would not probably survive all this. So yeah, let's assume that happens. Let's move forward. The subsequent blackout. Why a blackout? Causes mass devastation. Planes crash. All right. Let's assume that happens. Communications grid collapse. Already jammed global supply chains, which by the way we're getting back to normal 3 years ago. So in 3 years, they were already jammed supply. But okay, that's so we were doing better 3 years ago, and we're going towards getting the supply chains back to their well and functioning. But now in 2040, before the blackout, they were jammed. All right, great. So already jammed global supply chains come to a standstill. Prices of oil, grain, coal skyrocket exponentially. Unsubstantiated reports claims report over 100,000 lives are lost. I mean, if all this would have happened, I would have guessed more than 100,000 people would die. But all right, a world on the brink. Again, on the brink, 3 times used. You could use it once. So whoever wrote this, I'm guessing that there are more people who wrote this whole page. So that's the thing. The sad thing in all this is that everything that's written on this page, on how we got here, Battlefield 2042, it was probably vetted by a lot of people, lawyers, all sorts of weird lobbying people. I don't know, at the very least a lot of lawyers, so as to be careful what's said. And I guess those lawyers don't care about the wording, so they have Brink 3 times in here. A word on the brink goes over the edge. No internet. Okay, why no internet? That's interesting. So in 2040, does all internet come from satellites? I mean, okay, I understand, wireless is cool, but I would guess that a lot of the internet, even in 2040, will be based on, wires. At least, in people's homes, definitely servers would have that. Any major institution would have that, universities, all sorts of government buildings, I don't know, any major business, right? So private properties would have wired connections to the internet. So I don't know why the internet would not be available due to this blackout. I don't know, maybe there would be, problems with producing energy to run the servers to have, but even so, you still have some parts of the internet, so I don't know. But okay, no internet. I don't know how that would be, but I mean, we've had no internet before, but not, after we build it, it's like, I don't think it's gonna go away anytime soon, even with something like this happening. So no internet, no navigation, no surveillance, no storm forecasts. That's very specific. Geopolitical distrust surges overnight, as if the trust was fine, but everyone was trusting, or at least somewhat trusty before that. It was a war on the brink, remember? And 3 years ago, the United States and Russia were having friction, but now with the geopolitical distrust skyrockets. Okay, no one can spy on each other, so no one can trust each other. Okay, that's a very bleak way of looking at things. Like, I can't trust you, I can't spy on you, so I don't trust you. Okay, that's very, very weird. Whoever wrote this, I don't think they like humans that much. Humans can be pretty awesome. We're made to be awesome. So, trusting humans is not the biggest issue. You don't have to spy on a person, or you don't have to have the ability to spy on a person to trust them, right? I mean, governments is something different, but even so, even with no internet, no navigation, no surveillance, we've had spies before. I mean, there's spies, physical spies, in pretty much every country, so it wouldn't be impossible to spy on each other. Both Russia and the US claim the other is responsible for the blackout, okay, so, but wouldn't that space debris storm would be the cause? Okay, so the cause for the space debris storm isn't known, but the blackout that results from that is known. It's the space debris and all the crashing things in Earth orbit, right? Okay. Okay, so they don't know who's responsible for the blackout, while some suspect NOPATs were behind it and accused them of trying to sow anarchy. Well, they already have anarchy technically, right? The NOPATs, because they have no country, so they have anarchy. Maybe they want to spread it around. Okay. Former military and combat trained specialists among the NOPATs rise up into armed task forces to defend themselves as tensions rise. Okay, this is an interesting text right here. It says, right, they rise, so military personnel rises to defend themselves as tensions rise. To defend themselves from whom? Because in everything that we've got so far, we have 3 factions. We have the United States, Russia, and the NOPATs. That's it. Nothing else. And Russia and the United States are blaming each other, about the blackout, right? They say that the other one has caused it. So who's attacking the NOPATs if the United States and Russia are blaming one another? We don't know. Shall we go? Maybe China? Maybe we don't know. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the in 2040 we'll have like the Free Republic of Taiwan that has Taiwan and the whole of China like continental China. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's why they're not mentioning it, because Taiwan took over. The Brink of War, fourth time we got the freaking brink. One time, okay. This is free, free advice for Electronic Arts. One time, you can write brink one time, just one time on this whole page, just one time. It's more than enough. A food and fuel shortage ignites a shadow war between the US and Russia. Again, why? Okay, so we got again food and fuel shortage, but why? Why would that ignite a shadow war between the US and Russia? Because they would have maybe other opportunities to get those resources from. It's not necessarily because there's other countries in the world. That's the whole thing, or at least we assume there are, right? So what's going on in the rest of the world? If the US wanted, I don't know, more food or more fuel, why not attack, I don't know, another country? Doesn't matter. I don't know, attack Canada, why not? I mean, they should do that already, right? Why is Canada there? No one knows. But, it would be easy for the United States to take over Canada. They have probably some, some oil, but they have some oil. Yeah, they have some oil there. Come on. So that's weird. It's like there's no other option except war between these two superpowers. No, there will be easier things that you could do in order to alleviate the food and fuel shortages, especially since they're on fucking two different continents. Okay, sure, they're pretty close, the Bering Strait, but other than that, they can expand in other areas, right? Like they did in previous times. So what's the problem? Anyway, 2042. So 2 years after the brink of war, open war is imminent. Oh, took some time, right? Like it took this It took like 21 years. What? No, 11 years, right? From 31 to 4. Yeah, 11. It took 11 years from catastrophe to catastrophe to global outage to craziness to fuel shortages to second depression to all that. But now war is imminent. Only now. No-pats have no choice but to choose sides, fighting not for a flag but for their future. This is to pull on your heartstrings. It's not for a flag, it's for a future. All right, it's to survive, probably. Sure, that survival is fine, future is fine. Their way is your story, so you're part of the no-pats basically, and I guess you're supposed to be somewhat connected to them, but they have no nationality. They've been expelled by their own countries, which that would be a little weird to, like, you could technically put yourself into someone's shoes who would be like that, but that doesn't really happen in the world. Anyway, so that was join the fight. So that was it. That was the whole story. Well, what's available on the website on Battlefield, on the, well, actually ea.com/game/battlefield 2042. But yeah, that's the story. If we join the fight, what do we have to pre-order, right? Yeah, of course, buy it. Buy the stuff. Become a no-pat. I think there was a bit more than this, no? Oh yeah, sorry, I missed this. Sorry, I skipped over. Wait, very important stuff. To maintain plausible deniability, like that's a thing that they care about, both sides field no-pat task forces as proxies in escalating conflicts over resources, promising the refugees a piece of what's left. Okay, so this is very interesting. So I can't believe, I remember there was something like that, but I skipped over it. Okay, we're back. This is good. So we got a proxy war. This is nothing new, right? It's nothing new, Afghanistan, last century. I mean, if you come really close, well, a lot closer, Syria, right? So Syria, proxy war between, let's say some Western countries and Russia, probably Iran a little bit. So, China definitely. So proxy wars aren't something new, right? They've existed for a long period of time, and they'll probably continue to exist. Now, the interesting thing here is that the US and Russia are supporting the no-pats, and the no-pats are, if we read earlier, they were, the no-pats are still distrustful of the governments that exile them and refuse calls to assimilate. Okay, now we don't know who exiled 1.2 billion people, but I guess maybe some were exiled by Russia and the United States. So, I'm thinking, if the U.S. government, through its, CIA agents probably, well, technically that would be two different entities, and Russia comes in and says, we're going to give you money, weapons, and all that, logistics, so you can fight, the proxy war for us. Wouldn't the nomads be distrustful of that? Because they're already distrustful of the governments that exiled them. Why would they be trustful of other governments, of the two biggest superpowers, which have have proven in in the last, well, I guess if it's 2042, ooh Jesus, 140 years, that they are murderous and they don't care about people. So why would the nomads fight a war on behalf of those two superpowers? Doesn't really make, if they're distrustful, you don't take their offer because you don't trust them. That's the whole thing, right? You can't spy on them, you can't trust them. Well, you can't spy on the United States if you're a nomad, or or Russia if you're a nomad. So if they come knocking with an offer, you shouldn't trust them. You don't take, you don't shake their hands because there's no reason to. I mean, there are other countries around. Why would they have to align with one or the other country, superpower? Where's China, by the way? Shouldn't the, like, if the nomads align with 2042 China, maybe they could have done something. Maybe they could shift the balance, and then there would be China, US, and Russia, and there would be a standstill because they wouldn't attack each other. And by the way, no mention of nukes, which is interesting. Okay, I mean, you'd think the world being on the brink of war for such a long time, you'd think maybe a nuke would fly. Maybe not. That I if it doesn't, that's fine. That's actually great. Actually, I would have more respect for mankind. I already have a lot, but I would have even more respect if they haven't used any nukes up until this point. Like, you know what? Good on you. You have it, but you're not going to use it. That's the whole point of the nukes, I guess. So that's good. Don't use it. Don't go that crazy. But yeah, that was it. The Brink of War 2042, and you're supposed to be a nomad, someone who doesn't have a country, who's on a boat, who's been exiled, because that's a thing, by your own country, and now you're gonna take up arms. You're gonna take up arms that were delivered and paid for by a different country to fight another country, which makes total sense in the weird story of Battlefield 2042. It's very strange. I don't know who wrote it. Again, I'm guessing that multiple people worked on this story. This doesn't seem like the work of one person. If it was one person, it would be more consistent. I think it would be a bit more logical in the sense that you wouldn't have so many things just kind of thrown in. It feels like everything but the kitchen sink. We don't have aliens in there. We don't have aliens and nukes, which is interesting. Maybe the nukes are saved for later, like for actual gameplay reveal and whatever. But there are no aliens yet. But other than that, we have everything. Disbanding, almost world war, proxy wars, food shortages, fuel shortages, second depression. We got everything. No internet, no spies. It's the satellites falling. Yeah, it's planes crashing. We got everything. We got everything but the kitchen sink, and it's they threw everything at the wall for the story of Battlefield 2042, and it's a little disappointing. It's a little disappointing because this is a title that is hundreds of millions of dollars probably in total cost in development and in marketing, and you'd think it would have a better story than this. I mean, this is a worse story than a B-level action movie from the 80s, and those were pretty bad. Even in the 80s were pretty corny and crap, but those were of those times, right? This story is being written by people in the 21st century, 2020. Let's say, I don't know when the development started, probably earlier than that. Let's say in the last 3 years, right? This story has been in the works for 3 years, and this is what they give us? I mean, come on. I mean, I understand the story's not going to carry you throughout the game because it's going to be multiplayer, but at the very least, they could have made something that had more consistency and was based more on history, so it would make sense that we could get there. So ideally, you'd have a story where there's so many elements could happen very soon that you'd be like, you know what, I don't think that's gonna happen, but god damn it, it's possible, it could. But no, this whole bullshit, it couldn't happen. There could be other stuff that might happen until 2042. I don't think any of these will be the case, But and even this combination of things wouldn't be the case. It's just weird. You know, again, countries haven't been mentioned, no mention, but like the whole continents are not mentioned in here. You know, it's supposed to be the open war and where is it? Tell me that the world. Where does it have? Come on, tell me there's a world somewhere. The world is on the brink, goes over the edge. So the world. Well, the world is pretty big. It's not that big, but it's pretty big. It's definitely bigger than the NOPATs, the US, and Russia. It's bigger than that. So where are the other people? Why are they ignored? Maybe they're not going to be ignored because they'll be added later, or it just makes it simple to have a no identity avatar in the game. So if you have US soldiers with US patches on their arm, fighting in the game against Russian soldiers with the Russian flag on their arm, then that's an identity that's clear. Whereas with the NOPATs, they have no identity. They could be anyone, and of course that also means that you can do whatever the fuck you want with them. In terms of especially aesthetics, which could mean any types of skins and modifications. It doesn't matter. They don't have to look like soldiers. They can look like everything. They could have, I don't know, like weird teeth. They has gold grills. I don't know, all sorts of weird hair. Doesn't matter. They could dress like drag queens. Doesn't matter, right? They just put the weapon on them and it's done. So technically you could have anything like that because they have no identity. So they can be from anywhere, right? They could be anything, which means they're nothing. They have there's nothing, and the player is gonna kind of fill the void in that, but the player just is already, themselves, so it doesn't really matter that much. It would be nice if there would be a connection between, the character that you have, and there will be to some extent, because, obviously you'll have characters that you like to play more than others, but in terms of the actual identity and the story, it doesn't seem like you're gonna care much, or there's not gonna be anything that is gonna make you care about the conflict that you're fighting. It's just going to be hopefully a fun game. But the story is weird. It's sad. I'm sure a lot of people were paid a lot of money for this crap, and that just shows you how we don't really have a free market capitalism. Because whenever people say that, it's like, yeah, no, if companies like EA, who's a publicly traded company, if they would care, the biggest care that they would have would be to maximize the profits of shareholders, they wouldn't hire and pay people to come up with crap like this, because this doesn't bring value to shareholders. Because they don't care as much for the value of share. They care a little bit, but not enough for that to be the be all end all. It's more about changing culture, changing minds, and whatever, and doing specific things. If you reach a certain point, right, with the company, and I guess EA is at that point where they don't care so much about they care about the profits, but it's not the be all end all thing. So that's why you get stuff like this, because you get people who are maybe inexperienced, maybe they're a lot of corruption probably in hiring practices and biases, and you get stuff like this that it's sad. It's sad for a game that is part of a huge franchise to have a story this bad. It's just it's it's bad. That's it, everyone. That's my view of it. I can't believe I did 43 minutes. And you know what? I do want to play though. I do want to play it. It's just I'm not gonna buy it. If EA comes and gives me a free copy, then I'll probably play it and cover it. Maybe I can play the open beta together with you when it comes out. But no pre-orders. That old meme. Like, remember, no pre-orders? Yeah, no pre-orders. Not with something like this. Yeah, I'm gonna wait it out to see what happens. Cause this whole thing with the story, this isn't an isolated incident. This is, institution-wise, it's everything. Every single facet of the making of this game is influenced by the same elements that lead to this type of story. I mean, sure, people matter, right? So you're gonna have different people. People matter, and people can change quite a bit. But the culture is one that it's not gonna bring higher quality, because you know, it doesn't bring quality to the story. It's not going to bring quality to, you know, other elements. It's going to bring maybe higher quality than the story, but you know, you can always go, you know, with more if you put a lot of resources, especially in a game like Battlefield. You could have, you know, every single element like super top notch. The story's not there. Hopefully the gameplay is going to be decent, you know, performance and all that, and the maps. But yeah, we'll have to see. For now, that was it. Thanks so much everyone for watching, and give a thumbs up if you like, subscribe to the channel if you want to support me, and if you want me to do more, you know, opinion pieces, I guess, like this, then you know, let me know, and support me on locals, cryptichybrid.locals.com. It's $4 a month and you get tons and tons of perks, and you get better you get coverage of games with better stories from me on the channel because of your support. Thanks again everyone for watching, and until the next time we see each other, have an awesome day.